Hello and welcome to another Pimp My Quad session. Today we're gonna pimp an antenna. I call it the antenna tank mod. Sure, you all know this kind of antennas. With the sexy cap on top, but after a crash they mostly look like that or like that. And today we're gonna try to do something that this won't happen again. But I'm Babylon, so I need to pimp it Babylon style. But it don't have to look always sexy, it need to be useful as well. So we take a little look in the treasure chests. I'm gonna put some LEDs on top as well. So at the end it will look about like that. Here I used some snakeskin on top instead of LEDs, but for this video I'm gonna pimp it a little bit more. Useful pimping, not only sexy pimping. So what we're gonna need for tools. We need some soldering iron, Sidecutter, some solder, the antenna of course, some LEDs, Heatshrinks, and because I'm gonna use LEDs, we also need some connectors that I can disconnect it easily when I have to fix something on my quad. To connect it and reconnect it and disconnect it. So let's get started. And of course we need a big heat shrink, a big one, and some snakeskin. To start, we take the cap off the antenna, the top off. You can just do that with your fingernails and just rip it off, and then it's open. Then I'm gonna use my soldering iron and make a hole in there. Why use a soldering iron? Because it will be a nice hole without any sharp edges, that the cables don't get destroyed from the LEDs. And of course we're gonna do that on the top of the antenna as well, on the cap. A little hole in there, just big enough that the cables fit through. And clean the tip of the soldering iron. Check if the cables are fitting. Yeah, that looks good to me. Alright. So now we can start with the LED. We need some wires as well. As longer as better for the beginning, that we don't have them too short later on. But they will be, I can tell you right now. I take here these silicone cables. They came together with the LEDs when I ordered them from Banggood. Let's do some pre-soldering on the side where it says in, where the cable comes in. This is the last LED in the LED row. So alright, so we now do some pre-soldering for the plus, for the ground, and for the signal. The cables will look in to the middle of the LED, because the hole is in the middle. Actually these cables come pre-soldered with the LEDs. Was the first part. Now we can put the cables through the hole. Alright. And I'm gonna glue it. I glue it on with some super glue. Hopefully it didn't dry out by now. Hopefully it's a good glue. Let's give it a try. Whoops, that was a little bit too much. Shit, I guess the whole house will glue now together. So if that happens to you, just take care that your fingers don't stick to the antenna and you can't remove it anymore from your fingers. So let's let it dry for a couple of minutes. But the good point on it, that much glue what is on should make it actually waterproof as well. It was a little bit too much of glue, but better too much than too less. But don't hold it too long, because maybe your fingers will stick to it as well. Okay, 2 minutes are over. It fits, it's good. So now we can put the cables through the hole of the bottom side from the antenna and close the antenna top again. So now we manage that we won't see the cables afterwards anymore. Just find the connectors that it's closing properly. Great. And to protect these wires from the LEDs, we put some Heatshrink over them. I'm using now a lighter to shrink it down. I don't care if the Heatshrink gets black, because you won't see this part later on anyway. Just straighten it out. Take care, it's hot. I'm just telling this for people that don't know that fire is hot. And now I put some more Heatshrink over both of these parts on it. And later on, when there's so much Heatshrinks on it, and when it's hot, I can bend the whole antenna in the way I want it to be. So now this Heatshrink is a little bit too small, but I need this small one because a bigger one is too big and will not be tight around the antenna. And a Heatshrink you also can stretch up a little bit. I'll show you how. You take some scissors, put it on top, and gently pull it apart, heat it up, and on the tip of the scissors you can see that it's opening a little bit. On the other side as well. Now let it cool down, otherwise it shrinks because of the heat. So let it cool down, then it stays like that. So, and now you can put the Heatshrink over the SMA connector. It should have fit. Great, perfect. And so the Heatshrink will be very tight around when you heat it up later on. So I'll put the other two parts over it as well. So now we put them on. Now let's shrink them. I'm doing that again with the lighter because you won't see this part later on, so it don't need to look pretty at the moment. Just straighten it out again, because later on it will be too difficult to make it nice and straight. And now we put a bigger heat shrink on it to put all in a nice shape. Just cut it to the right length. Now I'm using a heat gun because it's a bigger heat shrink and it will be nicer and better. And again, take care, it's still hot, don't burn yourself. And now comes the most nasty part, the snakeskin. You can't straighten it, you can't tied it up a lot, so it's very difficult to put it over the SMA connector. So it should have fit, but it will be a really terrible job to put it over. It quite takes some time. You just can do it in little steps. Just cut it a little bit bigger than you think, because when it's stretched up it becomes shorter, the snakeskin. Seal the ends that it's not splitting too much. Now we can start the fight with putting it over. No, not with the cables first. The SMA first. So now is the most difficult part is done, and now just from the back to the front push it millimeter per millimeter. So 5 minutes later we fit it all around. Pull out the cables gently, and now stretch up the snakeskin. And now you see the ends, they're a little bit split. And so we put some more heat shrink on it, but now we take some black one that it looks a little bit prettier. So half of an inch, so half of an inch should be fine. So now I take the heat gun again to shrink it down. Just put it in the right position where you want it. Cover all the cables and the snakeskin. I can see this little bump on the end, but that's okay. This keeps the heat shrink in place, that it's not moving around again. That's exactly what we want. And now, while everything is hot, you can bend the antenna in the way where you want it to be, but take care that the cables from the LEDs look to the downside and not on the top side, that they don't touch on the frame later on, that if you have a crash, that the cables don't get cut on the frame or somehow. So let them stay on the bottom side of the antenna. Alright, so now we're nearly finished. So we just need now the bigger heat shrink for the top. We take the big heat shrink that the top is not flying away on a crash. As you can see, this one is also much too small, but as we know from before, heat shrinks you can stretch up as well. But for this we need a bigger scissors. We take about an inch or a little bit more. I know. I have the scissors. I stretch it up. You can see it's about 20% bigger than the original. And this one is a special one. It's got on the inside got some glue. What is actually quite perfect for this project for this project, because it glues on the cap on it when you heat it up, and it stays much better in place than a ordinary heat shrink. I put the link in the description, of course. Now I just put it on that the ends of the heat shrink can bend all around the edges, that the top is not moving away. It's like grabbing all around. So I take the heat gun again, and as you can see now, actually the LEDs would stay in place without glue. Now while it's hot, you can bend the heat shrink on place, and like I said, it glues also to the top, so your top never will come off again. Now we're actually ready with the antenna tank mod, but I'm gonna show you how it works. So I need to connect it to my copter. I just opened it up before. Yeah, I didn't fly this one for quite some time because I managed to get this magic smoke out of a VTX, and yeah, oops, shit happens. So I need 3 of these pins to solder it on the other LED, but this time on the other side where it says out, where the signal comes out of it. And the short sides we solder to the LED, to this one, like I have it. So how I can manage? Okay, so that should work. That should be fine to solder it. Actually, that should be okay. Yeah, it looks good to me. Ta-da-da-da-da, it fits, great. Alright, so now we take the servo cable connector to plug it in, but take care that the cable's on the right position from the connector. So like this, the antenna will be. Guess the cables are too short, so I need to make them a little bit longer. But I can do that with the connector. Just cut them and pre-solder them. Put some more heat shrink on it. We got some tiny ones for the tiny cables. 3 little pieces. But first we take care that the plus ground and signal is on the right position. If not, you can take a sharp knife, lift off the little parts on the connector, and then you can pull out the cables to rearrange the order of the wiring. Just shrink the soldered places together. Alright, so now we can connect it, plug it in. Alright, like that. Great. Just do a mark with a pencil that I know when when I have to disconnect it, that I know how to connect it later on. Zip it and rip it. Cut off the rest of the zip ties. So now I need to configure the flight controller to tell that there are 4 more LEDs. Just give me a second. Alright, let's run the test. I told the FC that there are 4 more LEDs on it. As you could see before, I'm using a race flight flight controller, and I'm using the gyro configuration. And when I move the copter in the jar axis, they will be red. Let's give it a try. Yaw is red. Pitch, it becomes blue, and on the roll axis it turns green. Oh yeah, now I've got it on the antenna as well. Yeah, so sexy. I love it. Great. Pimp my quad, Babylon style, antenna tank mod. End of today. Happy flying, boys and girls. See you soon.